Hello and welcome to Loop Hero tips and tricks that will help you from your first loop to your 100th. This video will cover some beginner, intermediate and advanced tips, as well as how to play as each of the classes and some of my favourite builds. Feel free to use the chapters to skip to the part of the video which interests you. In this video I'm going to assume you've played Loop Hero a decent amount, so if you haven't and you're interested in what Loop Hero is, check out my review in the description now. Let's jump right in. So I'm not going to focus too hard on ultra beginner tips or card synergies, but just some cool things you may not know, might not have noticed, or hopefully haven't heard anywhere else. First of all, this bar here in the top left underneath the daytime bar tells you how close the boss is to being summoned, which is infinitely useful when looping to make sure you don't summon it too early. Also, each card has a location placement indicator. Green means on the road, half green means next to the road, and full black means anywhere else. The equipment is divided into sets, so if you're looking for a specific stat, say vampirism, and you don't want to stop and check every piece of equipment, you can keep an eye out for only those specific pieces in the right set. Be aware that though these sets contain some guaranteed stats, there's also RNG ones, meaning that the stat you're looking for could still appear on any piece of gear. If you're struggling when starting out, don't be surprised. The game may be classed as a roguelike, but it's actually more of a roguelite. As with each expedition, all the materials you take back to camp with you allow you to build more structures or are supplies that increase your power, allowing you to get further in the coming expeditions. With that in mind, a tip I've not seen anyone else give is, early game when you're struggling with bosses or dying in loop, retreat. It's vital you get those resources back so you can build the structures you need to power up. So go a few loops, then retreat and take what you have back with you. When it does come time to fight the first boss, when summoned he'll spawn these Lich Palace tiles in a 3x3 grid on any free space around the campfire. Each of these gives him an additional 5% damage and HP, so if you have any Oblivion cards, destroy them, or better yet, just block the tiles so that they can't be spawned on before the boss is summoned. Only place the best cards. It may seem like you're wasting cards if you don't place them. An early game you feel like you need to get cards down as soon as possible, but you don't, you always get more. So hold the lesser cards and wait for the specific ones you want to place, especially once you have the rare book jewellery in your supply. Not to mention, any cards that aren't played and get burned are turned into memory fragments, 10 of which become a book. In addition to that, never place forests, rocks or deserts when thickets, mountains and sand dunes are much better. The exception being that you can place rocks to form your mountaintop, but then only surround it with more mountains. Bend that river. Bend it as much as poss. The doubling effect stacks. What this means is that you can get a thicket up to plus 16% attack speed if you bend the river enough. Just a quick hyper nerdy aside, in this 7x5 area there's 35 tiles, right? So that would be 70% attack speed if we just used thickets. But with the river bends it's actually 136% attack speed. So that's a 66% increase because of the rivers. So bend, bend, bend. Also, bear in mind that becoming an oasis or a reed kills the river's doubling effect, so be careful where you place those river tiles. You can farm mountaintops by using an Oblivion card on the mountaintop and then replacing a mountain or rock card to reform it. This will give you a full metamorphosis resource chunk every time you destroy the mountain and another one when you recreate it. So once your map is complete, or if you've got nothing else you need to Oblivion, farm those mountaintops. Build mud hut after mud hut. Once you've built everything you need, focus on filling your camp with mud huts. Don't even upgrade them, just build them for now, because each new mud hut lets you take another supply into every expedition, allowing you to become very OP. Once your camp is rammed full of mud huts, then you can upgrade them. The first upgrade doesn't let you take more items into an expedition though, but the second and third ones do, so focus on getting them to the second upgrade as quickly as possible. If you care about achievements or lore, then unlock all those pages in the encyclopedia as soon as possible. For your information, you can unlock pages in the encyclopedia even if you haven't yet encountered the thing they pertain to. Once you've unlocked the full encyclopedia, as soon as you've built the alchemist tent and unlocked alchemy, dismantle those books and turn them into stones and rations and whatever else you need to get those mud huts built and upgraded. The books have no further use. Now let's move on to each of the class specific tips. The warrior is the simplest class and the one you start the game with, but that doesn't mean it's not good. The warrior is really great at killing bosses because of his high damage. When playing the warrior, focus on pure damage, damage to all and max HP. Be aware that pure damage ignores defense and is added onto your total damage, whereas damage to all hits all targets at once. Generally, I would prioritize pure damage over damage to all for the warrior, as killing targets faster means less damage received. But knowing what they mean, bear in mind that 10 damage to all is better than 10 pure damage. The arsenal is probably the best golden card for the warrior due to the retaliation damage on the helmet, as well as the additional stats. The warrior pairs well with supplies such as kitchen knife and lots of any food, it doesn't matter which, as well as the alchemist shelf and the herbalist sickle. The warrior's biggest strength is his high HP, so make sure to take rocks and mountains. The rogue is easily the best class in the game in my opinion. When playing the rogue, focus on attack speed. Thickets are crucial for a good rogue run. Because the rogue doesn't pick up items directly, but instead collects trophies which are exchanged for gear at the end of each loop, the outpost works incredibly well with the rogue. The more trophies you claim on a loop, the better the gear you get, so take spiders' cocoons, or combine vampires' huts with villages, and avoid road lanterns to max enemy spawn and increase the number of trophies you collect. Also, avoid the blacksmith's forge and swapping gear unnecessarily, as the more gear you have at the end of each loop, the more resources you'll get in exchange for it. Use either the Arsenal Golden card for magic armor or the Ancestral Crypt for high HP. But if taking the Ancestral Crypt, avoid the spider's cocoons because as we all know, spiders don't have souls. The rogue class pairs well with the Count's chair due to its innate vampirism and the antique shelf due to its high resource gain. The Necromancer is the class I personally think is the weakest, so take my advice with a pinch of salt as I'm not 100% sure I get it, but focus on equipment that increases your skeleton level and most importantly, summon quality, as this affects the type of skeletons you summon, allowing you to summon those big boys and do the heavy damage. Bear in mind though that summon quality can't go higher than 100%. Attack speed is good for the Necro as it boosts how quickly he'll summon, but unfortunately not then how quickly those summons attack. If you reach skeleton capacity, the Necromancer will do an attack instead of summoning, which is also affected by attack speed, but is very disappointingly weak. Sand dunes and Oasis don't seem to affect skellies at all, so are good cards to bring, but they will affect your Necro. For the same reason, avoid the rocks/mountains as they won't increase the health of your summons. Many a Necro run can end prematurely if a boss decides to attack the Necro directly, so the trait laying down one's life is a must-have for the Necro until you get that high summon quality and start summoning those skeleton guards with first target, meaning they'll always get hit first. Finally, do not use the outpost with the Necromancer as the guards present will refuse to fight alongside you and will instead bombard both sides with arrows, making the battle much more dangerous. The Ancestral Crypt is the best golden card for the Necromancer, as he cannot equip HP boosting armor, it has no downside to him. Most supply items aren't much help to the Necromancer due to the effects not passing on to his summons, so it's best to take items that keep you alive like Blacksmith's Hammer, Silver Pendant, and of course the Alchemist's Shelf and the Herbalist's Sickle. There are so many fun builds that you can find online for this game. A favourite of mine is to play the Rogue with the Arsenal Golden card, taking a supply full of Count's Chair for the vampirism, silverware and garlic for the damage resistance, and fill the rest with antique shelves and miner's picks. Cover the loop in cemeteries, surrounded by vampire mansions and outposts. Fill the rest of the world in with thickets and rivers and focus on attack speed and evasion. I call him the Hoarder for the sheer amount of loot he brings home. But my favourite build of all is the Masochist build for the warrior. Credit where credit's due. This was posted on Reddit by a guy called Dedosrafel? Shadow of Israfel? See the link in the description. But the build focuses around the strong aftertaste trait, which gives you an extra 1.5 damage for every potion you drink. Using the Alchemist's Shelf and the Herbalist's Sickle to take as many potions as you can and have them heal as much as possible, and then just make the warrior get hurt and have to drink potions to heal, making the warrior stronger, hence Masochist. The build is brilliant because it centres around not having to constantly check and equip better gear. You're trying to keep your gear outdated so you get hurt and drink more potions. It's frankly broken and a genius abuse of the game's systems. I highly recommend giving it a try. It will truly broaden your loop hero horizons. Well, that's it. Hopefully you've heard some tips or learned something from this video you haven't heard elsewhere. That was my aim here, and that's why I haven't covered all the generic a vampire's mansion next to a village creates a ransacked village which ends up being a count's land which gives you so much better healing bro tips that are mentioned in literally every tips and tricks video. Thanks for watching. Good night. Sleep well. Pleasant dreams. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Bye. Take care. Bye. Bye. Bye.